This is my BSA Model 12 single-shot target rifle, manufactured by the Birmingham Small Arms Company in Birmingham, England, from approximately 1909 until 1940. These are chambered for the standard 22 long rifle, or as the British called it at the time, the 220 long rifle. Here we see the stacked rifles logo of the BSA company, which was in use at the time. The barrel on this rifle is 25 inches long, 1 inch in diameter at the breech, and 3/4 of an inch at the muzzle. These rifles are built on small framed Martini actions, the Martini being a Swiss adaptation of the American Peabody hinged breech action. Since these rifles were intended for small bore target shooting, they are equipped with appropriate sights, a adjustable post front sight with 2 different positions, which is mounted on a block on the front of the barrel, and the rear sight, which has an adjustable iris that screws into it, which you can set to 6 different positions to let different amounts of light in. The sight folds down, as you can see here, for transport, and the side of this sight is engraved with markings on a vernier scale. Here we see the folded down position of the sight and raised up for use. The sights in this rifle are of course windage and elevation adjustable, and in a very fine, precise manner. You can hear the clicks as the sight is adjusted for windage. And there's also some tactile feedback. You can feel the sight click when you turn the thumb knob. Some versions of this rifle were equipped with a open sight on the rear of the barrel as opposed to the aperture sight seen on this particular example. Here we can see the rotating aperture disc with 6 different aperture sizes. This is to adjust the sight to the individual shooter's preferences. Here's a close-up of the breech area of the rifle while it's being loaded. You'll notice to the right of the breech there's a cocking indicator which stands up. The cocking lever drops as the rifle is fired, and a slow-mo of the empty cartridge being ejected. This particular rifle is a takedown. Not all versions of this rifle were a takedown. The first stage in taking down the rifle is to unscrew the takedown pin, which is located on the left-hand side, and that's a tapered locator pin which indexes with a cutout in the barrel. And after that you simply unscrew the barrel and the action from each other. It's a fairly straightforward process. Of course you have to have the breech block open to do this, because otherwise you'd break off the extractor. As you can see, it's a very substantial rifle. The Martini action is a very simple and very sturdy design. This was a very similar sized action to that used for the 310 cadet rifles that were used in Australia for training purposes. Here we have a look at the breech end of the barrel. You can see it's cut away at the bottom for the extractor, and there's also a shallow depression for the barrel locator pin. And reassembly is simply just screw the barrel back onto the rifle and reinstall the pin. There are 2 sling attachment points on this rifle, one at the rear of the fore end and the other that's located on the barrel about 4 or 5 inches ahead of the end of the fore end, and those are for attachment of a target sling. Here we can see the cutout and reinforcement that holds the end of the opening lever, and that's what you use to open and close the action. Most of these English small bore target rifles were developed and used by English small bore rifle clubs or miniature rifle societies. The English found out during the Boer War that most of their conscripts had very, very poor marksmanship skills, especially compared to the Boers. Most of the Boers, of course, lived around firearms and horses, knew how to ride and shoot, and made very effective guerrilla fighters. The average British conscript came from an urban area and had very little exposure to either animals or to rifles. In fact, the best soldiers during the Boer War came from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, because most of the populations of these areas were rural and they were used to firearms and to horses, and as a result made much more effective soldiers. So in an effort to improve the marksmanship abilities of their countrymen, the English promoted small bore rifle practice. It was considered to be much more practical to support small bore rifle shooting than it was full bore, because full bore ammunition cost a lot of money and you needed quite a large range with an elaborate backstop. However, a small bore range could be built just about anywheres and for very little money. Due to the popularity of small bore rifle shooting during this period, English gunmakers rose to the challenge and manufactured a variety of high quality small bore target rifles. Most of these rifles are of substantial construction and feature crisp triggers and very nice adjustable sights. In addition to newly manufactured rifles, substantial quantities of older centerfire rifles were also converted to shoot .22 rimfire ammunition for small bore rifle practice. There are a variety of Martini-Henry large frame actions, as well as the Metfords and Lee-Enfields, which were converted for small bore rifle shooting during this period. This rifle has a Canadian C broad arrow stamp on the stock, indicating that it was accepted into Canadian service as either a training or a cadet rifle at some point in time. Let's go have a look at the target to see how I did. I'm shooting in my buddy Fred's private range. He was kind enough to let me use 50 yards in length. And we were trying a few types of discount bargain store ammunition. Let's see how I did.
Alright, there's a 5-shot group with Winchester Dynapoint. Another 5-shot group with Winchester Dynapoint. There's a 5-shot group with the Winchester 333 bulk pack. And a 5-shot group with the Winchester Expert bulk pack. And we got one more group with the Expert bulk. And there's 5 shots from that. Not too bad for 50 yards for cheap ammo.
With target grade ammunition, this rifle will shoot much better groups than the one shown.